Hi guys, it's Miss Actual taking over T-Mac Actual. My name is Becca and I'm Tony Mac's wife. I am so excited to share with you my passion, which is herbs and natural healing. Whereas Tony's knowledge is all in the medical and tactical side of things, mine is the natural and wilderness survival and just the using nature to heal us. Now there is a little caveat to this. There is always a place for modern medicine. I don't think you should truly solely rely on herbs, and I don't think you should truly solely rely on modern medicine. I think that they can have a great relationship together, and I think that there is always a time and a place when if herbs are not healing you, then you need to seek out medical attention. So with that, I should also say I am not a doctor and I am not here to give you medical advice. I'm just here to share my knowledge of what a couple of herbs, but also the ways you can introduce them into your body, whether it be topically, internally, or through inhalation such as aromatherapy. So with all that, I think that my love for outdoors started when I was very young. I have always been a tomboy. I have 3 sisters and they were all somewhat girly, maybe not super girly, but I was a tomboy. I had my own tools. I played outside all the time. I worked on cars. I changed out transmissions with my daddy, and my sisters would be inside cooking. In fact, there was either a Thanksgiving or a Christmas that Dad and I were outside changing a transmission, and my sisters and Mom were inside cooking the meal for the next day or desserts for the next day, whatever the holiday was. So I think that's when my love for outside and herbs started, but my knowledge of it began when I went to college for massage therapy. And when I went through all of my anatomy and physiology, they talked about how everything in the body works and how certain things can work with your muscles and opening up the blood flow and moving certain fluids throughout your body to enhance relaxation, or if you have a stowed up muscle or something like that. And that's where my knowledge began with herbs. That's when I was like, whoa, all this entire time that I had been outside playing in the dirt, climbing trees, getting bruised up, and possibly falling out of some trees, all the plants that I've played with could have helped me or have medical uses. I had absolutely no idea that they did up until that point. And so when I began learning about Chinese medicine and the teas that they would use and certain oils, and when I talk about oils, it's not just essential oils. There's a couple of different oils you can use, or just an oil base for your herbs. It's just the carrier. You can use like a coconut oil, or you can use like an actual liquid oil, olive oil. And with that, you can, when you read the Bible, it talks about anointing with specific oils or herbs, or washing with certain herbs to cleanse them. Hyssop is one of them. And so I think that everything has amazing uses when we learn the chemical constituents of these. The only problem is because when a lot of the knowledge was passed down in the past with our ancestors, they didn't have the ready available information like Google or a telephone or just modern advances that we have to be able to communicate with each other, like YouTube. A lot of it was just by word of mouth, but then there were also some communities that could not reach out to others, because whether they were poor or they were just so far out that they did not reach out to other communities. And so there are a lot of herbs that can be completely different, but they have the same common name. So this is where it's very, very important to know your botanical names, your scientific names, the Latin names. I'm not so good at Latin. I can barely speak English sometimes. So sounding out these Latin words don't always work for me. But through listening to some people online, or I've Googled it, and I have searched a certain name and hit that little sound button and listened to the way Google said it, or I have watched YouTube and listened to the way they said it, or an audiobook and listened to how they said it. I'm like, oh, that's how you say that strange word. Makes sense now. But knowing your botanical names and your scientific names and your Latin names are very, very important. And so with that, you won't be able to know hundreds of these unless you study for years and years and years. So finding just a small group of herbs that work well for your body, because what works for me may not work for you, because I know what works for me does not always work for Tommie, and you kind of have to play with that. And that's why I feel like herbs get a bad name, because someone will say, this specific herb does wonders for me and you should totally try it, and then that person tries it and they're like, it did nothing for me, thanks anyway. And then sometimes they get turned off on it. So I don't think you should just go off of one avenue of knowledge. I think that you should choose multiple avenues, because when you start comparing things and you see what is overlapping, that is where your truth lies. There are a lot of people that think that you should pick the plant by the moon or by the sun. You should exchange a thank you or exchange energy with the plant when you are picking, whether it's the whole plant or part of the plant. And then there's some that think that's absolute hocus pocus and completely bogus, and it doesn't really matter. You can just pick them however you need to, as long as you're using them correctly. And then there's some herbs that get a bad name, that, oh, this herb is very poisonous. But if you look, you don't really find any cases of someone dying. You might find someone who used too much of it, and so they have the adverse effects of it, and so then it's labeled as poisonous. Same thing with food. Food is a type of medicine. You can definitely use food to heal your body. You can use food as an avenue of stress relief, and that's when you're overeating is when it becomes dangerous. Food is good for you, but too much of it is a bad thing. Same way with herbs. Be careful with them. Definitely do your research and choose what is best for you or your family. Don't just go off of one avenue of knowledge. Books from our ancestors or knowledge that has been passed down through the years is a great way to learn. There are a couple of books that I absolutely love, and they are my go-to books. Daryl Patton's book about Tommie Bass, who lived in Lookout Mountain. Incredibly smart man, both of them are. But Tommie had very little schooling, but he could tell you what herbs did what. He just couldn't explain why they did that. He just knew they did because of his history. Unfortunately, he is no longer living, but his good friend and my instructor, one of my instructors, Daryl Patton, has been able to explain those parts of it that Tommie was not able to when Daryl was learning from Tommie. And then this is another one that I really like. It's the Complete Medical Herbal, and it just breaks it down to a beautiful format of explaining. Here's elderberry. So here's your scientific or your Latin name, and then it explains what the plant is. Here is a little blurb of what the plant is. This breaks it down, the character. So you have flowers and berries, the bark, the constituents, which is also the chemical constituents, and then the actions of the flower, berries, and bark. Here is a picture of the flowers. Here is a picture of the dried berries, and then here's a picture of dried bark, and then here's some applications. Infusion, tincture, cream, eye wash, mouth or a gargle. The berries can be used as a syrup or a tincture. And then here's some cautions. I really, really like how this one is laid out. And then Daryl's book, I'm going to flip it to elderberry. So he does the same thing. He gives you the name of the plant, the scientific or Latin name, and then common names, the parts used, the traditional uses, and then here's an explanation of sometimes it's Tommie's stuff, sometimes it's Daryl's stuff, but it's just a really good information right here. And then down here, here's some preparation and uses, and then contraindications down at the bottom. And since it is flu season, elderberry is the talk of the town, and everyone needs to do elderberry, and elderberry is great. It is. It definitely is a great herb. It's a wonderful immune booster, but there's also herbs that can be used with it that make it stronger. One herb by itself is great, but finding sister herbs or other herbs that it can be married to is even better, because then you are not only getting these uses and benefits, but you'll get all these other ones too from these additional herbs. Here in the South, we have sweet gum, and that has a lot of shishimic acid, which is what is found in Tamiflu, to help shorten the duration of the flu. And so putting elderberry, which boosts your immune system, with shishimic acid works wonderfully. They marry very, very well. Now you need to think about your amounts of the different herbs, whether it's a specific gram of herb to volume of water, of liquid, whether it's water or alcohol for a tensioner. So there's many, many different ways that you can apply this to your body, but making sure that you don't just solely rely on one, but you find other herbs that enhance the uses that you're aiming for. But also you need to check all those contraindications as well. If you have high blood pressure, or elderberry hot is a diaphoretic, but cold is a diuretic. So children, those who are pregnant, and the elder, it's a contraindication for them to drink a hot elderberry tea, but they could totally do like a cold syrup or a tensioner or something like that. With kids, I would be careful with a tensioner because it is alcohol based, but you can definitely use it with them. A couple of the other books I like is this one, Medical Plants of the Heartland. This is all Indian, so it explains the different uses of them, and then it also tells you which tribes would use it and how each tribe would use it, because sometimes the tribes use things differently, just like everyone else in the world. And then I have some of my my PDR for herbal medications. It is the second edition of it. It's a really good use. The nutritional healing is really good if you're using food in conjunction with healing your body. The herbal drugstore is another good one, and then I have several others through here that I absolutely love. Some of them I don't believe the exact same as the writer, but they have some really good recipes. And so just because I don't believe the same as someone does not mean I'm going to discount them completely. I will definitely take in the knowledge they have to offer. Now, it may not be something that I personally use along the same belief line as them, but there is definitely some really good recipes in a lot of books. So don't just discount it just because you don't believe the same as someone. Another amazing resource that I absolutely love that involves the kids is the Herb Fairies. And so it is a 13 series book. So this one is Stellaria's Big Find, and it's talking about chickweed. And so it goes through the story of these kids who go through the woods. They find a fairy, and something is wrong with the fairy, and the kids have to figure out how to solve it. And well, then they learn about chickweed and how it helps, and then they help heal the fairy or the troll and restore the magic. Whether you believe in fairies or you don't believe in fairies or magic or whatever, it doesn't really matter, because it's just teaching the kids in a very fun, interactive way that captivates their imagination and really draws them in to learn about the plant. So not only do you learn about the plant, but Stellaria is chickweed's botanical or scientific name. And so the kids figure all that stuff out. And there are so many different ones. Let's see, they cover, let's see, I know it's 13 different herbs that they cover. So this one's dandelion, there's pine in here, there's, let's see, some of the other ones that are really fun. calendula. Plantain is another one. Plantain is a really, really favorite plant of mine. It's really good for burns. It has a cooling effect. In fact, I went on a picnic with some friends. Our family and their family went on a picnic here in town, and while the guys were grilling the burgers and hot dogs, excuse me, while the guys were grilling, the fire flared because of the grease, and my friend got burnt on his arm. So we had nothing with us. We had no aloe vera with us, no like major first aid kit. We just had a basic first aid kit because we didn't think anyone would get seriously injured. And so I just went looking for plantain, and I picked a whole bunch of it, rinsed it off as much as I could, chopped it up, made it into a poultice, and just applied it to his arm. Told him to keep it on there for a little bit. Although it wouldn't heal it completely, it would help that burning sensation dissipate to where it didn't hurt as much until he could clean it correctly and apply the correct topical application of whatever he chose. But it was a very simple find because I knew what to look for, and it was just a favorite plant, and it still is a very favorite plant. So we've talked about elderberry, and we've talked about or touched on a few ways to introduce plants or herbs into your body. So I'm going to touch on a couple of those. When I talk about oil, it's not always essential oil. This is Amanita oil. It's really good for arthritis and deep joint pain. And so it's soaked in olive oil. But this is the herb part, and it was ground up because the more surface of the herb that is showing, the more the oil can pull out those chemical constituents. And so then it's just been soaking in this. It was weighed out to the proper ratios of the oil versus the herb, and I've just let it sit. And every so often I'll get it out and I'll shake it up, and this is a peri-wash. It's really good for postpartum or any type of discomfort down in the no-no box for women. And it's done in witch hazel. And so even though it looks really dark and yucky, it is really strong. And I used it with, after I had our youngest, Actual. And it was very, very helpful with the discomfort. It was very helpful for hemorrhoids. And so it's not just a women's herb. Men can use it as well. You just put it in a little spray bottle or on a wipe. You can put it on a little cotton pad and just dab it on, and it's good to go. But you can use witch hazel for your herbs as well, weighing them out to make sure your ratio is correct. And a lot of your recipes will tell you need X amount of herb, X amount of carrier liquid, whatever you're choosing at that point. So making sure that you were following that, because that's how it is broken down to the correct dosage. Another way is syrups. So here's, my mama made this one, and it is elderberry and the sweet gum for the shishimic acid, and we call it our herbal Tamiflu. It tastes like butt, I'm not gonna lie. A lot of herbs have a terrible taste to it. It's not made to taste good. It's not candy. It's not a sweet treat. It's medicine. And if medicine tastes good, everyone would take it. That's why it has to be yucky. So you only take it when you absolutely need it. This is an elderberry syrup that I made. And this one I've kept in my refrigerator because we use it so often. But I went and picked elderberries, making sure that you do not confuse elderberry with poke, because the berries look very similar, but the plants are completely different. And once you learn what one plant looks like versus the other plant, you will never confuse them again. But this is my elderberry syrup that my kids love it. And so when I give it to my kids, I have one child who will just take elderberry. And then I have two children that will not just take elderberry. So we put it in a carrier like a juice, like grape juice, or we can use cherry juice, or if we have orange juice, I can put it in orange juice and it changes it like a little, like a pink color. And so it's fun, especially with Jessie, to put a little bit of elderberry in the orange juice and tell her it's magic and it turns it colors and whatnot. But then she takes it. Another way is tensioners, and you can make your tensioner or you can buy your tensioner. Making sure that you choose a reputable company. Do your research on them as well. This one is valerian, and valerian is amazing for the nervous system. If I am having a bout of insomnia and I'm just not sleeping well, or if my nerves are absolutely shot, valerian is my go-to. And I don't use it every single day. I don't use it every single night because it makes me sleepy. And I have found with my body, I can only take it so many nights in a row before I have to stop because it's just too much for me. And so I'll take it like every other day if I have like a really stressful week that I'm not sleeping, and I'll alternate the in-betweens with melatonin because then my body I don't feel like I'm overloading on valerian. I don't feel as groggy in the morning. But if I take valerian more than 3 days in a row, then I feel very groggy and almost like I'm hungover. But it just comes in a glass container that's usually amber color to protect it, with a little glass dropper that you can do by drops, or you can just do the whole the dropper itself. I do not use the whole dropper. I'll use half a dropper because I know my body is sensitive to valerian, although it's good. Some people valerian makes them wired, and so catnip is another option to help calm the nervous system. And I know when you think of catnip, you think of cats or animals, inside animals getting super high and goofy on it, but it works as a calming effect or a suppressant for I don't want to say sedative because it's not really a sedative, but it just helps your nervous system calm down. And sometimes it works like that for people, especially I have found with myself or my child who has ADHD. It works really well for us, not so much for anyone else. But like I said, it's a trial and error kind of thing. You try it, it may work for you, it may not work for you. That's why you need to do your research. Another way to introduce herbs into your body is fire cider. So it is an apple cider vinegar base. Fire cider is my absolute favorite. I guess it kind of falls into the bitters. And so what bitters do is it starts breaking down your food before it ever reaches your digestive system. So if you take a bitter tonic or you drink something bitter like fire cider before you eat, it causes your saliva to start, and then as you're chewing your food, because of the way our saliva works and the way it breaks down our food before it ever reaches our stomach, it just starts all that super early in the mouth and in the throat, and then by the time it reaches the stomach, it's done double the job that it would normally do. But fire cider also boosts your metabolism, so it's really good for like weight loss. Apple cider vinegar is great for acid reflux. Apples in general are really good for reflux. The juicier the apple, the better it is for your reflux. It works for some people and it doesn't work for others. But this also has, let's see, turmeric, citrus, habanero, horseradish, and ginger, lemon, oranges, onions, and black pepper. So this is one of my favorite brands. I can also make this myself. I give it to Tommie. And so I'll give him, like, you know, those little plastic medicine bottle or cups that you get with your cough syrups or something like that. I'll fill up a whole one of those and make him drink it. Sometimes he'll chase it with water and sometimes he doesn't. It's better if you don't, but it's kind of like, it's spicy. And the apple cider vinegar, man, it's gross, but it's really good for you. So, this is what valerian root looks like. I don't know if you can really tell, all chopped up in here. This is how I keep my herbs. It kind of looks like little pebbles. I'm not sure if you can really see that, but it looks like little rocks, but it's actually really, really ground up valerian root. So I can add this into a tea if I can make it a sleepy time tea. And there's other herbs that I would add into that for my sleepy time tea, but that is one of them that I would use for myself. And this is my elderberries. And we've used this quite a bit this season, so I'm running a little low on it. And this is just dried up berries. They kind of look like little raisins, I guess, or I don't really know. Dried berries, maybe. But in some of the places that, whether I'm picking them myself, because I have the availability to do that, some people do not have the availability to do that. And there are a couple of companies that I would use to order my herbs. One of them is Mountain Rose Herbs, and the other one is Southeast. I'll link them below. But they are two companies that I have found that are very reputable. They have great products, and they're fresh. They smell fresh, it looks fresh, and that's very important to me. So I have rambled on enough about my herbs and everything that I think is vital to when you start your knowledge of herbs. Even though I have been studying herbs for so long, I'm still very much so a student of herbs, and I never want to stop learning. I never want to stop searching for more knowledge, because someone always has something different, a different spin on it that I can learn from. So please comment below, hit that subscribe button and the bell so you can follow us on our YouTube journey, and comment below any resources or books that you use, any companies that you like to use, or if you have a favorite herb. I would really like to hear about that too. And as always, stay safe and train hard. That sounded terrible. I mean, dang it! And how your body functions together. Hey, Floor! The Chinese medicine, that is Eastern medicine. Lots of people like to go to Google, and Google is great. It's a great resource for many things. Medical advice is not it. Herbal advice, you can hit and miss with a lot of that. But my favorite resource is books.